We think about innovation is kind of the bullets, then cannonballs theory, which is really to say you're never really going to know what's going to stick, what's going to resonate with customers, what's going to be that inflection point that takes you to the next level. Aaron and I have known each other for far too long, and while we have the same vision for the company and our future, we think about the world and our skill sets are completely different. So it's important to be trying new things and don't be afraid to change. Aaron and I started Box in 2005 when we were sophomores in college. He was over at USC and I was at Duke. We arrived at the concept of Box actually out of a marketing project that our CEO did for one of his classes when we were in college. We weren't able to just very easily share a lot of files with our colleagues, and when our teachers were distributing materials, there's just no really easy way to access them and get them from anywhere. And at the time, there were a few file sharing solutions out there, but they were pretty basic, they weren't very easy to use, and we saw a pretty big opportunity to do things differently. Since we were working night and day, we were able to get the first version of the site out in about 2 months. And initially we gave it to our friends and family to play around with, but we also ran a number of promotions on tech blogs and just gave a bunch of accounts away to get the technology in front of as many people as possible to get as much feedback early on as we could. The initial feedback for Box was very, very positive. We were able to identify ways to clean up the user interface and features that would make it even better. But from the get-go, people seemed to respond really, really well to the ways that they were able to interact with Box and the ways that it solved some of the challenges they were having sharing files. We decided to pivot back at the end of 2007, and the reason for that was that we were seeing both our customers demanding a different feature set and a lot of different applications and ways to use Box in businesses of all sizes. And we'd have a number of customers say, look, we love the technology, we share files, we use it every day, but if we could only manage users this way, or had this feature, or had additional security measures to make our IT guys happy, we'd love it even more and we'd pay you 100 times as much. When we made the pivot to focus more and more on the enterprise, there was certainly some anxiety around kind of would it work, was this really the right direction for the business? There's always going to be anxiety, and when there's strategic shift, there's a lot of unknowns, but we felt really confident based on the data and what our customers were telling us and just all the other things that were continuing to work incredibly well, that this was the right move for us. One of the most important features that we built early on to start the pivot was an admin console, so that any user in a business would be able to add users, manage them centrally, get basic reports, and just ways to really understand what was going on in their business instead of a bunch of different individuals sharing and collaborating. A few years ago, we also introduced the ability to preview content from anywhere on any device, any file type, and that was somewhat revolutionary in the ways that people could access the content easily, completely online. So that was a pretty fundamental shift and milestone in a way that our competitors hadn't really thought of. The ways that we really separate ourselves from a lot of the other file sharing solutions out there is really just our fanatical focus on the IT buyer, while at the same time keeping the service very, very simple. So there are a lot of companies out there, and Dropbox is a great example of phenomenal technology, a great team, and we have a lot of respect for them, but they've gone after a very different challenge in the market, really focusing on the consumer space and just basic synchronization and file sharing, whereas we've gone after kind of the business segment, and while the core technology is similar, the ways that we've built it are actually very, very different. So when we started the company, it was really just a couple of us in an attic. And since then, we've seen quite a bit of growth to now a company that's worth north of $1 billion in about 7 years. And one of the reasons that we've been able to grow so quickly is because we've taken advantage of a lot of the freemium trends and the ways that our service is going to naturally spread very quickly in organizations. And we've been able to invest ahead of the curve and get a lot of companies to come over to Box really at the bleeding edge of when these things are starting to develop. You always need to be on the lookout for the next kind of great technology and really stay ahead of the curve, because there's such an enormous difference between the ways that people had been getting work done and the ways they can get work done. And if you even blink for a few months, you could be behind on those things. We've certainly come a long way and learned a lot, and we're having a blast. I mean, we have a very long way to go, and it's a huge opportunity, and we're really just getting started, but we've had a pretty good time so far.